Story Corner, presented by Jennifer. Mercy Thompson. Book 1, Moon Called. Chapter 4, Part 1. Home at last. I decided that there was only one remedy for a night like this. My stash of dark chocolates was gone, and I'd eaten the last ginger snaps. So I turned on the oven and pulled out the mixing bowl. By the time someone knocked at my door, I was pouring chocolate chips into the cookie dough. On my doorstep was a sprite of a girl with day-glow orange hair that sprung from her head in ridiculous and Rotatious curls, wearing enough eye makeup to supply a professional cheerleading squad for a month. In one hand, she held my camera. "Hey, Mercy, Dad sent me over to give you this and to get me out of the way while he dealt with some pack business." She rolled her eyes as she handed me the camera. "He acts like I don't know enough to stay out of the way of strange werewolves." "Hi, Jessie," I said, waving her inside. "Besides," she continued as she came in and toed off her shoes, "this wolf was cute. With a little stripe here," she ran her finger down her nose. "He wasn't going to hurt me. I was just rubbing his belly, and my father came in and had a cow. Oh, yummy cookie dough. Can I have some?" Jessie was Adam's daughter, 15 going on 40. She spent most of the year with her mother in Eugene. She must be in town to spend Thanksgiving with Adam. It seemed a little early for me for that, since Thanksgiving wasn't until Thursday. But she went to some private school for brilliant and energetic kids, so maybe her vacations were longer than the public schools. "Did you dye your hair especially for your father?" I asked, finding a spoon and handing it to her with a healthy glob of dough. "Of course," she said, taking a bite, then continuing to talk as if her mouth wasn't half full. "It makes him feel all fatherly if he can complain about something. Besides," she said, with an air of righteousness, "everyone in Eugene is doing it. It'll wash out in a week or two. When I was tired of the lecture, I just told him he was lucky I didn't use super glue to put spikes in it like my friend Jared. Maybe I'll do that next vacation. This stuff is good." She tried to put her spoon in the dough for another round, and I slapped her hand. "Not after it's been in your mouth," I told her. I gave her another spoon, finished mixing in the chips, and began dropping cookie dough on the pans. "Oh, I almost forgot," she said after another bite. "My father sent the camera with a message. It was needlessly cryptic, but I knew you'd tell me what it meant. Are you ready?" I put the first pan in the oven and started loading the next one. "Shoot." "He said, 'Got a hit, don't fret, he was a hired gun.'" She waved her empty spoon at me. Now explain it to me. I suppose I should have respect for Adam's need to protect his daughter, but he was the one who sent her to me. I killed a man tonight. Your father found out who he was. Really? And he was a hitman? Cool. She dropped the spoon in the sink next to the first one, then boosted herself up to sit on my counter and conducted a rapid question and answer section all by herself. Was that what you called him about earlier? He was fit to be tied. How come you called Dad? No, wait. The man you killed was a werewolf too, wasn't he? That's why Dad took off so fast. Who is the wolf he came back with? She paused. You killed a werewolf? Did you have a gun? Several, but I hadn't brought one with me to the garage. She paused, so I answered her last two questions. Yep and nope. Awesome, she grinned. Hey, how'd you do it? It wasn't on purpose, I told her repressively. I might as well have tried to hold back the tidal wave with my bare hands. It would have had the same effect. Of course not, she said, unless you were really... I raised my eyebrow at her, and she changed the word without slowing down. Ticked off. Did you have a knife? Or was it a crowbar? My teeth, I told her. Ew, she grimaced briefly. Nasty. Oh, I see. You mean that you took him down while you were a coyote? Most humans only know about the Fae, and there are still a lot of people who think that the Fae are just a hoax perpetrated by the government or on the government. Take your pick. Jessie, however, as the daughter of a werewolf, human though she was quite aware of the wild things, as she called them. Part of that was my fault. The first time I met her, shortly after the Alpha had moved his family next to my home, she asked me if I were a werewolf like her father. I told her I was, and she nagged me until I showed her what it looked like when I took my other form. I think she was 9, and already a practiced steamroller. Yep, I was trying to get his attention so he'd chase me and leave Mac. That's the striped werewolf? I imagined her finger down the nose gesture. I imitated her finger down the nose gesture. He's pretty nice, I told her. Then, feeling I had to play the adult in fairness to her father, I said, but he's a newbie, and his control isn't terrific yet, so listen to your father about him, okay? If Mac bit you or hurt you, it would make him feel awful, and he's had a bad enough time of it already. I hesitated. It really wasn't my business, but I like Jessie. There are a few of your father's wolves that you really do need to stay away from. She nodded, but said confidently, You won't hurt me, not with my father. But you mean Ben, didn't you? Dad told me to stay out of his way. I met him yesterday when he stopped by. She wrinkled her nose. He's a snark, even if he has this cool British accent. I wasn't certain what a snark was, but I was certain Ben qualified. We ate the cookies as they came out of the oven, and I gave her a loaded plate covered with tinfoil to take back with her. I went out to the porch with her and saw a sales lot of cars parked at Adam's house. He must have called the pack. I'll walk you home, I said, slipping on the shoes I kept on the porch for when it was muddy. She rolled her eyes, but waited for me. Really, Mercy? What'll you do if one of the packs decides to bother us? I can scream really loud, I said. That's if I don't decide to use my newly penetrating technique and kill him too. That's right, she said. But I'd stick to screaming. I don't think that Dad would like you to start killing his wolves. Probably none of them would harm a hair on her head, just as she thought. I was almost sure she was right. But one of the cars I'd seen was Ben's red truck. I wouldn't leave a 15-year-old alone with Ben if Ben was around, no matter whose daughter she was. No one bothered us as we walked through my backfield. Nice car, she murmured as we passed the donor rabbit's corpse. Dad really appreciates you setting it out here for him. Good for you. I told him next time he's annoyed with you, You were likely to paint graffiti on it. Your father is a subtle man, I told her. I'm saving the graffiti for later. I decided the next time he gets obnoxious, I'll take 3 tires off. I held my hand out and canted it like a car with one wheel. She giggled. It would drive him nuts. You should see him when the pictures aren't hanging straight on the walls. We reached the back fence and she climbed casually through the old barbed wire. If you do decide to paint it, let me help? Absolutely, I promised. I'll wait here until you're safely inside. She rolled her eyes again and grinned, sprinting for her back porch. I waited until she waved to me once from Adam's back door and disappeared inside. When I took the garbage out before I went to bed, I noticed that Adam's place was still full of cars. It was a long meeting then. Made me grateful I wasn't a werewolf. I turned to go into my house and stopped. I'd been stupid. It doesn't matter how good your senses are if you aren't paying attention. Hello, Ben, I said to the man who was standing between me and the house. You've been telling tales, Mercy Thomas, he said pleasantly. As Jessie had said, he had a nifty English accent. He wasn't bad-looking either, if a trifle inanimate for my taste. I said. He tossed his keys up in the air and caught them one-handed. Once, twice, 3 times without taking his eyes off mine. If I yelled, Adam would hear. But, as I told him earlier, I didn't belong to him. He was possessive enough, thank you. I didn't really believe Ben was stupid enough to do something to me. Not with Adam within shouting distance. Stay here a moment, Ben, Ben said with an exaggerated drawl of Adam's voice while he held drawl that Adam's voice still held from childhood spent in the deep south. Wait until my daughter has a chance to get to her room. Wouldn't want to expose her to the likes of you. The last sentence lost Adam's tone and fell back into his own crisp British accent. He didn't sound quite like Prince Charles, but closer to that than Fang and Oliver. I don't know what you think it has to do with me, I told him with a shrug. You're the one who got kicked out of the London pack. If Adam hadn't taken you, you'd have been in real trouble. It wasn't me that's done it, he growled ungrammatically. I refrained from correcting him with an effort. And as for what you have to do with it, Adam told me you warned him to keep Jessie out of my way. I didn't remember doing that, although I might have. I struggled. Ben had come to town a few months ago in a flurry of gossip. There had been 3 particularly brutal rapes in his London neighborhood, and the police had been looking in his direction. Guilty or not, his alpha felt it would be good to get him out of the limelight and shipped him to Adam. The police hadn't anything to hold him on, but after he immigrated, the rapes had stopped. I checked. The internet is an amazing thing. I remember speaking to Adam about it, and I warned him to watch Ben around vulnerable women. I've been thinking about Jessie, but I didn't think I said that explicitly. You don't like women, I told him. You are rude and abusive. What do you expect him to do? Go home, then, said a molasses-dripped voice from just behind my right shoulder. I needed to get more sleep. Darn it, if I was letting everyone sneak up on me. Darryl? I said, glancing back at Adam second. Darryl was a big man, well over 6 feet. His mother had been Chinese, Jessie told me, and his father an African tribesman who had been getting an engineering degree at an American university when they met. Darryl's features were an arresting blend of the 2 cultures. He looked like someone who should have been modeling or starring in movies, but he was a PhD engineer at the Pacific Northwest Laboratories in some sort of government hush-hush project. I didn't know him well, but he had the eminent, respectable air that a college professor sometimes has. I much preferred him at my back to Ben, but I wasn't happy being between two werewolves, whoever they were. I stepped sideways until I could see them both. "Mercy," he said, but kept his eye on Ben. "Adam noticed you were missing and sent me to find you." When Ben didn't respond, he said, "Don't screw up. This is not the time." Ben pursed his lips thoughtfully, then smiled, an expression that made a remarkable difference to his face. Only for an instant he looked boyishly charming. "No fuss, just telling a pretty lady good night. Good night, sweet Mercedes. Dream of me." I opened my mouth to make a smart comment, but Darryl caught my eye and made a cut-off gesture with his hand. If I had really had a really good comeback, I'd have said it anyways. But I didn't, so I kept my mouth shut. Darryl waited until Ben started off before saying briskly, "Good night, Mercy. Lock your doors." Then he strode off towards Adam's.